when I was doing that secondary fermentation, I thought, well, if that's all been turned into alcohol, surely the more sugar I put into this bottle, the more alcohol that's going to come out the back of it.
Right. Just from my own brewing knowledge, I'm seeing an outcome there that you probably weren't expecting and didn't want. Did they all explode, Martin?
A lot of them exploded.
What was the first beer you ever brewed? You ever home brewed?
I mean, going back to the first times I was brewing, it's going back quite far,
right.
Even for someone as young as myself.
Sure.
It's going 22 years back to when I was about 12, 13.
Right.
And finding an old brew kit up in the attic at my mum's house.
Oh, really? Is that what started it?
Yeah. So back in whatever that is, the late 80s, early 90s. It was probably from the late 80s actually, and I found it in the attic in the 90s. Was those homebrew kits from Boots. So Boots the chemist.
Yes, I remember.
So you'd get the plastic demi-johns and the syrup kits.
Right. So it's like a little white tub with like a label on it, and you unscrew it, and the old-fashioned ones.
Yeah, I mean it was a tub, a big can like that, full of malt extract. Or hopped pre-hopped malt extract. So you dilute it with water, and then you get a little sachet of yeast to ferment it out with. So I found one of those up in my mum's attic with all the other bottles and siphons and things that you needed, and I thought it would be really cool to try and brew my own beer. The actual extract can itself must have been probably 10 years old,
right.
The one that I found. So it was getting a big pot that my mum used to make jam, filling it with water, putting the extract in, boiling it up, cooling it down into your the plastic demijohn.
Right.
In with the yeast, and there you go.
There you go. How old were you at this point? I
think it was either 12 or 13.
Fantastic. Yeah, I get that.
It didn't taste amazing, I'll be honest.
Right.
But it was that spark of interest of seeing something that is basically just malt. Or the thing I guess that fascinated me the most was my mum's side of the family are farmers. Okay. So they they had fields of barley, and that barley would be made into whiskey. It went into the distilling industry, but I made the connection between the same raw material that goes into beer, and it's an amazing process of how something that grows outside your house can end up as a beer in your fridge. I think one of the key things that I learned during those times of messing about with you can, I guess it is home brewing, but it's home brewing in its most basic form, in that you've got your pre-hopped syrup that you're diluting back and adding yeast to it, but it's still incredible to see, okay, well this is a fairly straightforward process, but you're making alcohol out of that, and trying to understand, okay, well these little yeasts from the packet of dried yeast that go in are actually living organisms that are eating the sugars and turning that into alcohol and CO2, and that's really cool. And then although it tasted terrible, you do taste a little bit. And then I tried a cider kit as well, and that was equally unsuccessful. And then I got into the sort of high gravity brewing phase, probably when I was about 16, so still, I wasn't able to drive that, about 16, and the key there was taking your standard kit, fermenting that out, maybe adding a little bit of sugar so it's slightly higher in alcohol, and then being able to bottle that with the secondary fermentation. And it was, when I was doing that secondary fermentation, I thought, well, if that's all been turned into alcohol, surely the more sugar I put into this bottle, the more alcohol that's going to come out the back of it.
Right. Just from my own brewing knowledge, I'm seeing an outcome there that you probably weren't expecting and didn't want. Did they all explode, Martin?
A lot of them exploded. And the only place that was warm enough in our house to do the secondary fermentation was my mum's airing cupboard, so where you store all your towels and things to dry. So it was up in the cupboard up there in the warm store, and the bottles, I think there was about 3 of them didn't explode, but everything else exploded. Glass, beer, mess everywhere.
Fantastic. So popular in the Dickey household for that time.
Yeah.
How were the 3 that didn't explode?
Good. So I managed to get them chilled down.
Right.
And you have to open them super carefully. You crack it a little bit just to ease.
So let some of the CO2 come out.
They take about half an hour to open, but you can open them eventually. And then they were terrible. But at that stage, I was able to share it with some of my friends, and you know, when we meet up, you know, once or twice a year, it's roughly the same group of friends, and we always discuss that amazing homebrew that I made that we reckon was somewhere about 11 or 12% alcohol.
So I guess, you know, you guys are pretty known for brewing the strongest beer in the world. So is this is the first step of you kind of like figuring out how to do that? Were you always obsessed with like high gravity and like how can I do this and figure it out?
I'm not sure. I think it's probably just I guess a bit of my character in that, you know, whether you're cooking or brewing or running or cycling or whatever, it's, you know, how can you be a little bit better or go a little bit further or do something a little bit different.
Right.
And with brewing, at that time it was like, okay, well, what happens if we do add more sugar? You know, this wasn't full mash, full all grain brewing. This was syrup kits and as much Tate and Lyle sugar as I could get my hands on. But it was fun, you know, understanding what worked, what didn't work. That trial and error thing is always great, and I remember times where we'd get some fruit in the summertime and try and put some fruit in the beer as well, and just see what you could do. I mean, the kit was just a pot and some syrup kits, but it was still a learning process.
Exactly, yeah.